Hello everyone and welcome to the chapter number 55 of Blender Master Course Cryptomatte in Compositor. In the previous two chapters, we begin with the introduction of compositors in Blender, then we studied about the concept of layers and masks in Blender, and in today's chapter, we'll be understanding about the Cryptomatte. And for those of you who are new to this course, you can check out the previous 55 chapters from the link of the playlist in the pinned comment. Now we have the default Blender scene, and to begin with the understanding of the Cryptomatte, we first need to create 3 Suzanne models in the scene. So first of all, I will delete this cube by pressing X, then press Shift plus A, go to Mesh and select the monkey model. Let's also go to the camera view by pressing 0 on the numpad. Let's rotate it in the Z axis like this. Let's turn on the lock camera to view from here and change the view like this. Let's also create a duplicate of the Suzanne model by pressing Shift plus D. Let's place it over here. Let's also rotate it in the Z axis like this. Let's create another duplicate. So press Shift plus D again and place it over here. Let's rotate this one also in the Z axis like this, and now the scene looks perfect. For the background, we'll be adding a plane in the scene. So let's turn off the lock camera to view. Now press Shift plus A, go to Mesh and select the plane. Let's move it downwards in the Z axis and place it over here. Now tap into the edit mode. Let's scale it up to maybe 20 or 30 times. Let's go to the camera view again. Now for the back side, first I'll enable the edge select mode by pressing 2. Then I'll select these two edges. Let's extrude them in the Z axis like this. Then left click to finalize. Let's go to the camera view again. Now to give the corners a smooth look, I'll select these 3 edges. Let's apply the bevel to it. So press Ctrl plus B, increase the number of segments with the help of your scroll wheel, then left click to finalize. Now let's come out of the edit mode, right click and select Shade Auto Smooth. Now if you remember, in the previous chapter, we understood about the concept of masks, where we discussed that the masks in the compositor are used to define a particular region where the effect of the compositor will be seen. And today's topic, which is the Cryptomatte, is an amazing feature that will automatically generate the mask for each of the objects or any materials in the scene. Now to practically understand about the Cryptomatte, let's first give some material to the scene. So go to the render view. Let's also improve the lighting in the scene. So press 7 on the numpad to go to the top view. Select this light. Press Shift plus D to create a duplicate and place it over here. Let's create one more duplicate by pressing Shift plus D, and we'll place it at the back of the 3 monkey models. Let's place it over here. Then I'll select this light. Let's move it over here so that it is slightly away from the objects in the scene. Similarly this one also. Let's move it over here. Now let's go to the camera view by pressing 0 on the numpad, and this is how the scene looks. Then if you want to give some material to the light, then go to the object data properties with the light selected and change the color from here. For now, I'll change the color of the selected light to something like pink or maybe blue. Let's select the other light from the scene collection. Let's change the color of this light also. So let's keep the color to light blue color. Now I'll select the plane. Go to the material properties, and to create a new material, click on the new button. Now go to the base color and let's change the color to something like red. Then I'll select the monkey object, go to the material properties, click on the new button, and for this one, I'll be assigning the green color. Let's apply the same material to the other monkey objects also. So I'll select this one, go to the material properties, click on this icon and select the material.002. Let's do the same with this one also. I'll select it, go to the material properties, click here, select the material.002. Also, if you want to give them a slightly smoother look, then you can right click and select Shade Auto Smooth. Let's do the same with the other two also by right clicking and selecting the Shade Auto Smooth. Now in order to use the Cryptomatte feature in the compositor, we first need to enable the Cryptomatte in the properties editor. So for this, go to the view layer properties from here, then scroll down, and here you will have a category known as the Cryptomatte. From here, enable the Cryptomatte in object, material and the asset. Now before moving to the compositor, we first need to render this image. So click on render and select the render image. Now here we have the rendered image. So let's close this window, and now we are ready to go to the compositing workspace. So click here, and to add the nodes, enable the use nodes option. Now you can see here that in the render layers node, we are having many more outputs related to the Cryptomatte. I'll change the dope sheet editor into the image editor in order to see the output. So click here and select the image editor. Let's also add the viewer node over here. So hold down the Ctrl and Shift button and left click on the render layers node. Now the viewer node is added over here. Let's also close this side toolbar by pressing the N key. Now in the previous versions of Blender, these sockets in the render layers node related to the Cryptomatte were very useful. But in the recent versions of Blender, we can understand about the Cryptomatte without even using these sockets. Also, in the image editor, click here and select the viewer node. Now we are having the final image both in the compositor as well as the image editor. Coming back to the concept of Cryptomatte, we need to add the Cryptomatte node. So press Shift plus A, go to mask, And here you have two options, the Cryptomatte and the Cryptomatte Legacy node. The Cryptomatte Legacy node is that node that was previously used in the older versions of Blender. However, in the recent versions, Blender added this normal Cryptomatte node which we need to use right now. So I'll select it and place it over here. Now in this, the scene is selected where we have these monkeys, and if I click over here, then it gives you the option to select the Cryptomatte layer. So we have three options, the Crypto Object, the Crypto Asset and the Crypto Material. So with the Crypto Object selected, it will enable us to create a separate mask for any of the objects, and whatever changes we do in the compositor will only get applied to that specific object. So to assign a particular object, we need to click this plus icon, and now we need to select that particular object from the image at the back where we want to create the mask. So for now, I'll be selecting this first monkey object which has the name Suzanne.002. So I'll left click, and here you can see that the Suzanne.002 is added as the matte object. Also, let's add the scale node in order to scale down the image at the back so that it's properly visible. So press Shift plus A, go to transform and select the scale image. We'll place it over here. Let's reduce the scaling in the X and Y axis to something like 0.5 or 0.6, and now it looks perfect. Moving ahead, if you want to view the mask that the Cryptomatte node created, then simply take the image socket in the Cryptomatte node and connect it to the viewer node. Now you can see this image at the back, or this image in the image editor, that a mask has been created in that area where we had this Suzanne.002 object. Similarly, if I take the matte socket and connect it to the viewer node, then you will notice that only the area of this monkey object, which is the Suzanne.002, is colored as white because of the Cryptomatte, and the entire region around it is colored as black. Now this also means that I can do any changes in the compositor and apply it only to this specific mask region. So for this, I'll again connect the scale node to the viewer node, and just for understanding this concept, I'll be adding the hue saturation value node. So press Shift plus A, go to color, and in the adjust, select the hue saturation value node. We'll place it over here. Let's also connect the hue saturation value node to the scale node. And now suppose I do any changes in any of the parameters of this node, like the hue value or the saturation value, then the change will be visible on the entire image. However, by using the Cryptomatte node, we can apply this effect only on a particular object. So for this, I'll take the matte socket and connect it to the factor in the hue saturation value node. And now you can see in this image that the compositing effect, because of the hue saturation value node, is now being applied only to this monkey object, which is the Suzanne.002. Similarly, if you want to select any other object also, then click on this plus icon again, and now you can select that particular object by simply left clicking on it. It's also displaying the name of the objects where the cursor is placed. So if I select this monkey object also, then the same changes will get applied to this Suzanne.001. So this is the use of the Cryptomatte node, which allows you to create a mask for a specific object or a material or an asset, and by using it, you can apply the compositing effect to only some selected objects in the scene. Also, suppose I need to remove a specific object from the Cryptomatte node, then for this, click on this minus icon and select that object that you want to remove. So if I select this Suzanne.002, then in this case, the Cryptomatte node will no longer work on this object, and you can also see this over here in the matte objects, where it shows the name of only the Suzanne.001, which is this monkey object. Now moving ahead, the next option that we have is the Crypto Asset. So I'll select it. Let's also remove this Suzanne.001 by clicking on this minus icon, select this Suzanne model, and now the Crypto Asset allows you to apply the compositing effects to some selected objects which have a specific relation in between them. To understand it in a better way, let's go to the layout workspace, and suppose I select this monkey object, and with the shift key holded, if I select the plane at the bottom, then both of them are selected, and we'll be making this plane the parent of the Suzanne model. So let's understand it by doing it practically. First of all, press Ctrl plus P and the parent menu will appear. Now select the object, and with this, we have assigned the plane to be the parent of the Suzanne model, which means that if I select the plane at the back and try to move it, then in this case, even if we have not selected the Suzanne model, it will still move with the plane. Now before going to the compositing workspace, we first need to render this image again. So click on render and select the render image. Now the image is rendered, so let's close this window and open the compositing workspace again. Now in the Cryptomatte node, if I click this plus button and take this pointer to the plane, then as expected, it shows the name plane. However, if I take the pointer over this monkey object, then in this case, instead of showing the Suzanne.002 name, it is still showing plane. And that is because we made this plane the parent object of the Suzanne model. This means that if I left click either on the plane or on this Suzanne model, then in this case, the compositing effect will be applied to both the parent and the child object, which in this case is the plane and the Suzanne.002, and this is how the crypto asset works in the Cryptomatte node. Moving ahead, let's also understand the crypto material, but before that, let's also remove this plane object from here. So click on this minus icon and select the plane. Now click here and select the crypto material. Now by using the crypto material, I can select a particular material in the scene and add it over here, and then all the objects having that particular material will get the compositing effect applied to them. So if I click on this plus button and take this pointer over any of the Suzanne model and left click, then in this case, all the objects having the same material as this Suzanne model will be having the compositing effects applied to them. So in simple words, you are having three options in the Cryptomatte layer. The first one is the crypto object, which will apply the effect according to a specific object that we select. Then by using the crypto asset, it will consider the parent and the child object as one, and as a result, if I select any one of the two, then the compositing effects will be seen on both the objects. And then the last one that we have is the crypto material, and with this, the compositing effect will be applied to all the objects in the scene having a specific material. Now moving ahead in this chapter, we'll also be understanding about the Posterize node. So first of all, I'll remove this hue saturation value node by holding the Alt button, left clicking on the hue saturation value node and drag it away like this. Press X to delete it, and to add the Posterize node, press Shift plus A, go to filter and select the Posterize. We'll place it over here. Let's also connect it to the image socket of the scale node. Now this Posterize node reduces the number of colors in the image and also converts the smoother gradients into sharp transitions. In this node, you have the steps parameter, and by using this, you can control the intensity of this effect. Now suppose I want to use the Cryptomatte along with this node. However, unlike the hue saturation value node, this one is not having any factor socket in it. So in such cases, where a specific node does not have any factor socket to connect the Cryptomatte node, we have to use the mix node along with it. So press Shift plus A, go to color, and in the mix, select the mix color node. Place it over here. Now take the image socket in the render layers node and connect it to the first image. Then take the image socket in the Posterize node and connect it to the second image. And with the factor socket in the mix node, we can create a connection with the Cryptomatte node. So first of all, I'll remove this matte ID by clicking on this minus icon and selecting the material on the Suzanne. Now I'll change the layer in the Cryptomatte layer option and select the crypto object. Let's also connect the matte socket to the factor in the mix node. Now suppose I want that this Posterize effect should be applied only to a specific object, for example this Suzanne model. So to achieve this result, click on the plus button and select the Suzanne.002. To view the result, take the image socket and connect it to the scale socket also. And now you can see that this Posterize effect is being applied only to the Suzanne.002 object. Similarly, if you want to select any particular object, then click on the plus button again and select that particular object. And with this, we now arrive to the end of the chapter number 55. Today we understood the concept of Cryptomatte, like its usage in the compositor. We also understood about the different Cryptomatte layers, and in the end, we also explored the simple Posterize node. So our next chapter will be the chapter number 56, Introduction to Constraints. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming chapters. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.